Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. You don't know this. Well, now you will. But this is our third time recording this episode because I'm an idiot. A true, full-blown idiot. The first time, my mic wasn't on. Brandon could hear me, but it wasn't going into the recording. The second time, I'm an idiot, and while I was editing the episode, I deleted the file from existence, and I couldn't retrieve it while it was exporting. So here I am now, recording this episode the third time. Brandon hates me. I can't see his video, but I can assume what he looks like, and I don't want to know. But anyways, we'll start off here first. I definitely know how to say this now after two other grammar schools. We're going to start with grammar school, and it's I was saying Alexander Texier, but it's actually Texier. So I've learned my lesson. I will be saying that right from now on. Apologies to Alexander, which, who knows, maybe I'm saying that wrong too. But if you ever have a grammar school, you hear us say something wrong, let us know. Also, by the way, if you're not already, you should be in our Discord. We just hit 2,000 fantasy hockey fans in there. It's always bumping. There's always a lot of answers getting thrown around, or questions getting answered, rather. So if you haven't joined already, you should go to fantasyhockeypodcast.com and sign up there. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll find it pinned down in the comments below. So, without further ado, let's move into the week review now, and you can start us off there.
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing to talk about is Konechny getting scratched, although he did play in this most recent game. We're recording this Sunday night, so these games most of them are over. The Edmonton-Ottawa game is 8 goals in the first period. So that's where we are right now. So there may be some, muddled reactions to us watching that game be completely insane while we record this, but Konechny is back in, although did not register a point in the most recent game against the Islanders. And it was interesting to see him get benched, honestly. It kind of throws off the whole Konechny versus Petey.
Oh, no.
In fact, the whole thing's invalid now.
No.
Right? I feel like Konechny won because he was ahead at the time of first healthy scratch.
But here's the thing. Technically, if Konechny is still ahead on Petey, Konechny's just better. He was healthy scratched and still has more points. That's a better player, in my opinion. Did it in last time. That's impressive.
You got to be really good to get healthy scratched.
Yeah, you do. I mean, hey, Konechny played 17 minutes tonight, okay? Almost 18 minutes. Apparently, it was about the mistakes he made in that last game. It wasn't because he's a bad player. To be honest, I thought that maybe there was going to be a Petey for Konechny trade. I thought it was up in the air. Maybe the GMs listened to the show and they thought about it. But you know what? I think they actually did think about it. But then they thought about it a little bit more, and they realized, you know what? This is stupid. Why are we listening to these idiots? And the other reason is just because Konechny needed a little bit of rest to eventually get a hat trick. So just hold on to your butts. Konechny's going to break out here soon. I just know it.
I'm done listening to you. The next part here is Lafreniere has finally scored his first goal in overtime, an overtime winner.
Let's be real, though. That is not the best piece of news out of the Rangers this week.
No. This happened. So, like Gammy mentioned, we've recorded this 3 times, and different things have happened in between each recording. And one of them is Tony DeAngelo got punched in the face and then waved. Oh, no! I mean, it's hard to say it without laughing. It's so funny to be on the receiving end of a punch to the face and then get waved like 12 hours later.
I mean, you've really got to try for that. That takes effort, to get punched and get waved at the same time. You got to be a real class teammate for that. So apparently the story is that Kreider stepped in. So if you watch the game, what happened was Georgiev played the puck when he shouldn't have, and there was a miscommunication between him and Tony. Then you see Tony throw a little bit of a fit, of course, because of it, and so he doesn't play defense. And then Georgiev doesn't make the save, and so it ends up losing the game. Apparently, and this is all just from what I've read so far, Tony goes after Georgiev, says some things. There's some rumors that maybe there was... The best joke I saw was that he called him a commie, Russian. And apparently Kreider's really close to the Russians. He speaks Russian. And so Kreider goes up and just punches Tony D. And then some Ranger fans did some sleuthing, and they realized, hold up, there's a moment in the video of Kreider's press conference. If you're watching the video here, I'll put it up. But there's a moment in the press conference where Kreider goes to scratch his face, and you see his knuckle all bruised up. You can tell he punched someone. So I'm pretty sure it's real. So there you go. Tony D
It
got
sounds
punched.
pretty legit at this point. So
I think you got to give Kreider the C now. That's it. I think he's the de facto captain. He punched Tony D'Angelo literally out of the Rangers.
he's got the fist of the waivers.
Oh my gosh. What a story. What a story.
Yeah. The last bit, which is way less interesting, is the Domi versus Texier, since he shows up in grammar school. Debate about which center to be taking here. I have heard from unverified source, maybe it is verified, I don't know, look it up on Twitter, if that Domi is supposed to get the first shot with Laine. I think the big deal here is whichever one does get that opportunity with Laine is going to get a bit of a boost, a fairly significant boost probably. I thought it was going to be Texier. I think there's a lot of rumors that it was going to be Texier, especially after his shift to center. And considering it seems like he's more favored by Tortorella in general, I think it still sort of makes sense. But realistically, I think what's going to happen is Laine and Bjorkstrand will get split up, and kind of being with either one is pretty good news. Although I do think Laine would be the better one to be with.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, that is it for the week review.
That's it. So let's go into the injury report and talk about. You can play doctor now. Play some doctor.
Yeah. We'll go into the injury report. I'm sure there's even more stuff coming out today as we are, again, recording in the middle of games. But first up here, David Pastrnak's back. So hooray for everybody that took him, early. We said that he was worth a second round. Honestly, if we knew he was going to come back this early, he's still worth a first round pick even. But
I got him in the fourth round. Thank you very much to my league.
Early in the season, he was being taken in the third with Marchand. It was a weird beginning of the season here. Anyway, he's back. So good news for everybody that took him. Although I do think that it's probably at the cost of his body long term, because nobody should be able to return from major surgery that quickly unless there's lots of drugs involved. So we'll see about that. But next up, I don't really know who Matt Grzelcyk is anymore, other than somebody who is he's like Schrodinger's injury. He's hurt and not hurt at the same time all the time.
Yes.
So I have no idea what's actually going on with him. I assume his bone is always broken and unbroken, and that he may or may not play at any given time. Speaking of the Bruins still, Jake DeBrusk is also day-to-day with a lower body injury. Finally getting off the Bruins, we have Sam Reinhart day-to-day with an upper body injury. Alex DeBrincat and Adam Boquist from the Blackhawks are out with COVID, or rather on the COVID protocol anyway. Devon Toews is day-to-day with a lower body injury. We've got Jamie Benn and Roope Hintz, who both were day-to-day with lower body injuries and both have returned. Kevin Fiala was rightfully suspended for boarding a player in the LA game, so he'll be out until after the first game of next week. 3-game suspension, so he misses the weekend and then one more game. Thomas Chabot has an undisclosed day-to-day injury, which this kind of spoiled it now, because originally this episode is supposed to go out a little bit before tonight's games, but I was going to point out that Mike Riley is a 0% owned defenseman that actually puts up not great, but reasonable peripherals. Probably not worth necessarily owning prior to now, but he is the one getting top power play and already has a power play point, a primary assist as well. So he's an interesting 0% owned defenseman that, in really deep leagues you can be taking a look at. He'll make a feature later on. Eric Chernak is day-to-day with an upper body injury. We've got Alex Pietrangelo with COVID, or rather COVID, probably actually with COVID, considering the postponements of the Vegas games. Chris Letang is day-to-day with lower body injury. Matt Dumba is day-to-day with lower body injury. Peter Mrazek is day-to-day. He was cut by a skate. We don't really know the extent of the injury yet. Tyler Bertuzzi is day-to-day with an upper body injury. And then lastly here we have Josh Anderson day-to-day with the flu, apparently, that he caught noticed he had in the middle of a game.
I don't even. Yeah. How does that happen?
I don't know, but I'm worried about my Montreal shares now. Even if he doesn't have COVID,
the flu.
We've seen the flu wipe people out, entire teams at various times. I wouldn't be surprised to see different players on the Canadiens miss a game or two over the next couple of weeks of just as that thing cycles around the locker room.
Yeah.
Not good news that he found out in the middle of a game either. If it is COVID, man, that's not going to be good for anybody.
No.
But they said he tested before the game. He didn't have it, but those tests aren't totally reliable. So if he tests again and has it, it's going to be really bad news up there.
Yeah. There you go.
That's it for the injury report.
I'm going to start calling that Brandon's Anatomy. That's the new segment name. Is that bad?
Let's not do that ever.
Is that bad? Okay, that's bad. Okay. You see, I've had better ideas. That one not one of my best ones. So moving on to drop candidates. My first one here is going to be from the Vegas Golden Knights. It's going to be Riley Smith, 63% owned, way too high. I don't understand why people are holding him so much. I understand he has good stretches, but from the perspective of just what he can do, to me, he's a guy that's not worth a streamer spot once he slows down. When he's hot, but when he's not, there's no reason in holding him because his upside is 55-ish points, 55, 60 points, something like that. It's fine. I'd rather just have a streamer, though. And right now, especially with Vegas having these postponements this week, not that worth a hold.
Yeah, I agree. I always view Riley Smith as like a just slightly. He's like the top of the replacement level players, but he never has that like spiky ceiling. He's going to get you 3 points every 4 games, 60-point pace-ish, and like really nothing else. No thrills.
Yeah.
Nothing interesting.
Yeah, there's no sticking power there.
Yeah. My first one here is Mike Hoffman, left wing, right wing, 76%. I honestly don't know why St. Louis signed him.
Me neither.
I do think that he has a place. He should have a place on the top power play, but they're not giving it to him. I don't know if, clearly there's something up with Mike Hoffman just in general, because even in in Florida, they didn't play him like a ton of minutes. They basically sheltered him and played him on the power play, sort of Yandel style. But to not play him on the power play is just a really confusing move to me.
Yeah.
Regardless, he actually has a point tonight and a point last night, but I still don't really see the upside with him playing 13, 14 minutes a game, getting no peripherals and no power play time. He's just not worth it. Nope. If you can trade him, go for it. But I really think people are kind of aware that he's not going to be a good look this season. You'd really have to pull one over on somebody to be able to get to trade him for anything meaningful at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. You might be able to package him. Maybe packaging him would make sense, but then you do risk maybe overpaying. So do be careful if you choose to go that route. But I have heard stories of people now getting their trades with Hoffman included rejected because people are catching on. My next one here is going to be Ryan Pulock, 71%. He did get an assist tonight, but I still just don't like his prospects. His point, I don't see that point upside anymore. I don't think his peripheral, in the past, the reason to hold Pulock was because of that peripheral upside, which he still has some. I think he can realize it, but I just don't think, if what you're holding him for is peripherals, I don't think they're high enough anymore to justify holding on to him versus streaming in and out every week for a peripheral defenseman. And for that reason, I'm out on Ryan Pulock now.
Yeah, I'm getting closer to being out, although I did have a point tonight and 4 shots, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it does seem like Dobson is starting to get even more of the power play share. He played 5.5 minutes tonight compared to Pulock and Leddy sharing 3.5. So it does make you think that, although Austin Jarnac got 5.5 minutes also. I didn't even know he was on the Islanders. So that's weird. But regardless, it does make you think that they're starting to transition the power play towards Dobson. I think Pulock's, and this is the reason he was on top power play, his feature, if he's going to be on top power play, is a shooter first, but he needs to be able to figure that out and actually get it working. Otherwise, he may not have the long-term value we hope for this season. And if he doesn't have top power play, he's going to be the same as he was every other season, which makes him maybe just slightly below a 40-point pace, which is not quite enough.
Yep.
My next one, speaking of defensemen that are droppable, is Mikhail Sergachev. Defense, 72%. Same story as every other year.
Every year.
He gets drafted, except the difference between him and Pulock is this year I feel like people were taking Pulock knowing that there was power play one upside, and yet every single season people take Sergachev right around the same time that, in that like second and third defenseman area on your team, where you start taking a little bit of a gamble and people take Sergachev. And I never have understood it. And we always get questions about, what do I do about Sergachev? And then my response is always like, look at every other season he's ever played.
Yep.
He just doesn't, it's not even his fault. It's just like, if there's very few, if really hardly any defenseman that can put up better than half point per game pace without top power play.
Yep.
Sergachev is not one of them. I feel like the only one that does it with any consistency is Ryan Ellis, and he actually does get power play too, so it almost doesn't count.
Yeah.
Although I guess Sergachev does as well.
And Ellis has not
honestly,
been that great this season. So
yeah, Ellis has not been this great. But anyway, the point of the matter is, if you're trying to get a point defenseman, which Sergachev is, honestly. If he's going to be anything, he's going to be a point producer. He's not a huge peripheral guy. If you're looking for points from a defenseman, they have to have power play 1 or they are not going to be worth it.
Yep.
You can pretty much write that in a book. It's the same. It'll be the same advice year over year unless something drastic changes.
Yep. I'm going to stick with this theme of defensemen here and actually go to one of my biggest names on this list, which is Seth Jones, 90% owned. He's in the same vein to me as Ryan Pulock, where in the past you might have kept him for the peripherals, and he's just not really killing it. And on the points side, for 2 years now, since Torts has been there, we know who he is. He's this 45 to 50 point guy, 50 point defenseman. That's very inconsistent, and now he's getting even less power play time than he used to. He's down to around that 30% mark on the power play, clearly the second. The only reason I'd hold on to Seth Jones at this point is because maybe he gets on that top power play with Line A. But I mean, if you're playing 30% of the power play right now, I don't know why all of a sudden you'd go and now get the power play with Line A. It doesn't really make any sense to me. So I'd much rather have Werenski, and it's weird because in some of my leagues, in my house leagues, I've seen Werenski get dropped instead of Jones, and yet Werenski's the one on the top power play. So I don't really understand that. And the peripherals, for all intents and purposes, are equal. And that was a points league, especially one of the ones that I saw that happen in. So I don't fully understand what's happening there. Of course, I'd first try to trade Seth Jones because he still has name value. You know, everyone knows who he is. And on top of that, you can maybe package him, whatever you want to do with him. But I'd say first try to trade him, see if someone will buy. But I'm very low on Seth Jones rest of season. And I think I had him on unsustainably low, which he is. Like, if you're in a deep enough league where, you know, a 45-point defenseman matters with not a lot of peripherals, then great. Then he's going to pick it back up and get to around that range. But if that's not worth it to you, which in both of my 12-team leagues, that's just not worth it, I'd rather stream out, then in that case, I'd recommend trying to trade or drop. Especially with so many good defensemen right now available on the wire that are coming up and coming, right? You've got Noah Dobson. We'll talk about a few here coming up that are still lowly owned. There's a lot of good options out there.
Yeah, I think the only reason really to be hanging on to Seth Jones long term at this point is with the ideas and the hope that he will find a way to get on the top power play with Line A, but you're asking for a lot there. I personally probably wouldn't drop him yet, but plus he has that crazy name value. I think trading him is probably the better option if you can.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
But yeah, he's another one of those guys that, like, I don't quite understand why he always has this, like, name value to him.
Yeah.
But he does.
By the way, an immediate Edmonton goal as the period started. So it's now 6-3. Power play. And
I'm pretty sure they've scored on every single power play
I think
far.
so.
The Oilers.
Ridiculous. Okay, so do you have one more?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Bobby Ryan is my last one.
Yep. Happened quick.
Left wing, right wing, 35% owned. He showed up on unsustainably high. Then she showed up as a ad target, and now he's showing up as both a drop candidate and a short-term ad. So I'm going to go ahead and spoil one of my short-term ads here because Detroit has a pretty decent. I mean, they have an off-night schedule.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where if you need those off nights, you may not in the coming week, but if you do, he's got 3 off nights, which may be hard to come by. And he is playing good minutes, and he is playing top line, top power play. But I just don't. I don't think we're going to be able to expect, and unsurprisingly, I guess, anything like what he was doing when he started playing for Detroit.
Yeah, I agree. My last one here is going to be from Ottawa, Tim Stützle, 24% owned. It's way too high, in my opinion, for a young kid. It's not getting a lot of minutes on a terrible Ottawa team. I mean, right now it's 6-3, and he's not really factored in. I'm low on Tim Stützle right now, and I think the only reason you'd hold him is in a dynasty, even in a keeper league, unless you're keeping like 14 players or something. It's just not worth it. If in a keep 5, in a keep 6, in a keep 7, whatever it is like that, you're not going to keep Stützle. If you are, you're probably, I don't know, either have a terrible team or you have hopefully a lot of high picks planned, because otherwise Stützle is just not a great option, I think, right now this year or maybe even next year. I think it's too early right now to say Stützle will be a star next year.
Yeah.
I do want to move in really quick straight to long-term targets because my first one here, we talked about defensemen. My first one is a defenseman that I think is just way too lowly owned. I'm shocked he's this low, and that's Rasmus Andersson, defenseman, 24% owned. He just keeps becoming more and more the real deal. Top power play, getting good 5-on-5 minutes. Sometimes we'll have an occasional low-minute game, which is a little bit worrying, but for the most part, his 5-on-5 minutes has remained up. Gets pretty good peripherals. He got 5 blocks the other night. I'm very long and high on Rasmus Anderson. And in this example, right, where you're seeing guys that we don't like, you have Seth Jones. I would rather pick up one of these young defensemen that are doing really well. You got Noah Dobson, you've got Rasmus Anderson, especially in a points league. Peripheral, the Cats league may be a little bit different, but in a points league, I mean, there's better out there. Better upside, at least.
Yeah, for sure. My first one here, and now the more I see this Edmonton game, the less I'm sure about this, and we'll see, is Jesse Puljujarvi. They have 6 goals, and he's not in on any of them, although, 4 of them are on the power play, and he's not featured on power play 1. And actually, even if he was, it wouldn't matter because the puck is only touching Barrie, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Ryan Hopkins. It doesn't really matter who the 5th guy is.
It's weird.
But regardless, I like... There's things I like about Puljujarvi, and I mean the main one is that he's playing with McDavid and Ryan Hopkins at even strength, but also that he's a shooter and a hitter. So the problem is like he really does need to be able to find a way to go on power play 1 just to get those few extra points, because it's once again just like last season, the most lethal power play that there is in the game. So even if you only get on half of the power play points and the points go around you, then that's better than nothing. And it's so lethal that you'll be able to, rack up points regardless. But like I said, I'm a little bit more hesitant on this than I was prior to these last couple of games. But I do think there's upside with him as long as he's playing with McDavid. He has been snake bitten so far. His expected goals for is like well above 3, and he has 0 so far. So it hasn't really gone his way yet. But and his IPP is also really low. So he just hasn't really been able to get anything going. But he may just also be bad. So
Very
we'll
possible.
see. But he has shown a couple like individual efforts that I'm surprised one of them hasn't resulted in a goal yet.
Yeah.
But at the very least, even if I am considering dropping him next week, and I probably will because I think Edmonton only plays 2 games anyway. I do think that he's somebody that long term I will always be watching if he can get something going.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with this theme of young defensemen. I'm going to do Philip Hronek, 26% owned, mostly a points league option. I'm not huge on him in a non-points league option, but Detroit's been getting points. And the thing is that at the end of the day, those points go through almost always the people you'd expect. And Hronek is starting to become one of those guys that you expect. He got another assist tonight on a Mantha goal and a Bobby Ryan assist as well, so that top line. So it's starting to seem like every game, Detroit will get 1 or 2 goals, and it'll go through Larkin, Mantha, or Hronek. That's kind of where the puck goes. And because of that, he's benefiting a lot. Hronek has 6 assists already. I'm high on him rest of season, and he's in that situation, I think, where people don't want to touch Detroit because Detroit sucks. And just because of that, that's not a good enough reason, in my opinion, to stay away from Hronek. And he's available in a lot of my leagues, which is really surprising. And when you're looking for points defensemen, it's hard to come across guys that consistently get points. And I think Hronek could become one of those guys that just more consistently gets points. And at the very least, you can trust, I know his minutes are going to be up. I know he's going to stay top power play. And it just has that security blanket of knowing that, he's the guy. For example, tonight, he got 24 minutes of time on ice. That's pretty dang good. Much better than any other defenseman there. He's getting shorthanded time and power play time.
Yeah. My next one is Denis Gurianov, left wing, right wing, 46%. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and check what he is now because I have a feeling it has gone up. But basically, the point of the thing is that he is on that. Let's see, he is 49%. So it has. He is on that extremely good Dallas power play that has been just lights out so far. He's a big hitter, which is nice. 9 hits in his last 2 games. And he shoots, but the only real downside I see with him, besides his obviously unsustainable point numbers that he's gotten lately, is his ice time is inconsistent. So if there's anything I would put a knock on him, it would be his ice time. But he's still somebody I would definitely be looking to add in a bunch of leagues. I would like to see him get 17 plus minutes a game, but even at 15 plus minutes, he's pretty effective. Especially, again, on that top power play.
Yep, I agree. My next one here, I've just two more. Well, one really is my first one. He got a goal tonight. It's Carter Verhaeghe, 16% in Florida. I also like Duclair. I think Duclair has a little more sticking power on that top line at 27% owned. Mostly both are for points leagues more than anything, although I do have Duclair in Cats League, and I still like him quite a bit. But I do like Verhaeghe quite a bit recently, and he's been more of the shooter. So it kind of depends what you need in your league. If it's more of a points league that's geared towards goals, maybe I go Verhaeghe in the meantime, and he's the lower owned guy. But I do think that if things go a little bit south at any point, it's easier to move Verhaeghe to the second line and bring up Huberdeau than it is to move Duclair down and then bring up Huberdeau up to the right wing. Huberdeau's left wing, so unless Verhaeghe's going to be moved to the right wing, I don't see that happening. It's probably Verhaeghe who gets pushed off of that top line. So something to watch, but I do like Verhaeghe right now at that 16% mark.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. I had him as well. My last one here is Ty Smith, 33%. Everything it touches is gold right now, which of course means it's all unsustainable. But and as we saw, again, this is something we kind of learned after the fact. His power play percentage has been kind of wavering. So he's been top power play and then not, and then yes, and then no. But I'm under the impression that long term he will see. I don't know. I assume that he'll start seeing more power play as he's been very effective, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, right now,
I'd like him more in points leagues than I like him in anything else.
Yeah.
Because his peripherals just kind of aren't there. Although they're not horrible, they're just not great. He would not be valuable if he wasn't scoring points.
Yeah.
He's not a defenseman like that. But I do like him. I do like that his ice time is increasing from the start of the season where he was skating 12 to 17 minutes, and now he's been skating sometimes where he's skating up to 20 minutes. But he's already up to 37%, so I'm sure the points are making people notice him. But I do find him quite interesting. I don't know that I would add him quite yet, but he's definitely somebody that I'm paying attention to.
Yeah, same. And I mean, the thing with him is that top power play, like you said. Right now, Severson has a top power play. The last two games, Ty Smith has only played 33%-ish of the team's power play time on ice in a game. So something to watch. As of now, he hasn't stolen that back. And at least if you're asking me, I'm not picking up Ty Smith until he reclaims that top power play. I know he's putting up points. That's great. But you've got to, if he's not getting that top power play, like Brandon said at the opening of the show, right? If someone's on top power play, you just can't expect those points to continue. Sure, he might be getting points now. Do I expect that to sustain? Absolutely not. Okay, so let's move into the week preview before the short-term targets. And first, let's talk about the teams with 2 or less games. It's going to be Toronto and Edmonton. And then Vegas has 2 and San Jose have 2 because of the postponements. So it's something to remember. So if you're heavy on Toronto or Edmonton, maybe you've been relying on those McDavid and Draisaitl points, you're going to be struggling a little bit maybe this week. Just something to pay attention to. You might want to be picking up some players. And then the teams that play 3 off nights are going to be Boston, Tampa Bay, Philly, and Detroit, which make it a little bit difficult. And with Detroit, it makes a guy like Ronick, even if you don't want to hold him long-term, more interesting, and a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi pretty interesting. And then teams with good matchups, we're going to start adding this if you missed this last week, because honestly, every team plays 4 games, and now matchups become more important because teams are playing each other more often. So Montreal has a pretty good schedule. They play 2 Vancouver games, 2 Ottawa games. Vancouver can't play defense, as evidenced by tonight. Neither can Ottawa. Tampa plays 1 Nashville game and 2 Detroit games. Pretty good matchups for them. And then Anaheim plays 1 Los Angeles King game and 2 San Jose Shark games. So those are pretty good for an Anaheim team, even though they can't score many goals. Maybe you're in a really deep league. If you're in a really deep league, I would assume that there might still be Anaheim guys available, because who owns Anaheim people aside from John Gibson at this point anymore? Not many people.
Right.
So I struggled a lot to come up with short-term targets this week. Tyler Bertuzzi was probably my only one. And Philip Ronick I like a lot too from Detroit. But I know, Brandon, you have quite a few, so you walk us through your short-term targets here.
I do. I'll start with Nick Ritchie. I'm actually kind of surprised he's only 11% owned. His points have been there. He's a decent hitter. He gets PIMs. His shots are okay. They're not amazing. But he plays power play 1 in Boston, and he gets those off nights like you mentioned. I think he's actually a medium-term, possibly even long-term target, depending on how things go here. He's been featured on that top power play for a while. He has been making it work. He got a power play goal in his last game, so it's not like a one-off fluke. He's been doing quite well. He starts off with 3 off nights coming into this week. Capitals and Flyers twice, and then also a game on Saturday on a sludge match, which means both teams are tired against. Oh no, actually, it's just they're just tired, not a sludge match. So they're tired against Buffalo, but it's Buffalo, so it's fine. And Boston, yeah, I mean, I think you want to be exposed to especially with Pastrnak back. If you can continue to get tips on as the pucks go into the net, and buck goals and whatever, what else you have with him. The rest of his game complements a categories league pretty well. So 11% seems pretty low for him. He's somebody I'm definitely be keeping an eye on coming into this week. Next up, Bobby Ryan. So I already kind of hinted at he is a drop candidate in my opinion, but he's also a short-term target as he's got 3 off nights this week. However, those off nights are starting on Wednesday. So if he's on your waiver wire, you can kind of wait. And the off nights are not the easiest. They play on the road twice against Tampa and then against Florida. So not the best deployment, but depending on how deep your league is, or deep and sharp, I'd say, because if it's just deep, then he's probably owned by somebody. But if it's deep and sharp, he's probably on the waiver wire, but is probably the best available. So there are leagues where he might be valuable. Next up, Carter Verhaeghe. We already covered him, but due to the schedule, he makes sense this week. This is more of both a matchup play as they play Nashville twice and then Detroit once. It's a really good matchup. Starts on Thursday, so you can pick him on Thursday, get him Thursday, Friday, Sunday, 2 off nights, and Thursday is the heaviest night of the week, but it's only 11 games, so you might be able to fit him in anyway. Really good matchups for him. And then we've got James Van Riemsdyk, who, man, that guy is just getting all the point value he possibly can. His point equity is insane lately. Super unsustainable, obviously. But left wing, 35%. I assume this has gone up as he got a 3-point game tonight against the Islanders, and he's coming off of another decent performance, if I remember right. So 35% left wing. I think he's a pretty good ad once again because of his off-night schedule is a nice bonus. Not the easiest schedule, Boston Caps, but when you're looking for off nights and hot hand, I guess, if you want to kind of roll that, although there's different opinions about whether hot hand actually matters. But anyway, let's assume it does. And he's worth taking. His ice time is totally random, though, it seems like. Sometimes it's 18 minutes, sometimes it's 11.
It's all over the place.
Next up here is Alex Killorn. 30% owned. I'm actually kind of surprised how low he is. I feel like we went into the season with a lot of people drafting him due to, remembering parts of last season where he went off on the top power play. He is still playing the top power play. And he's got a very easy beginning of the schedule with Nashville, then Detroit twice, all at home. And all off nights as well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you can drop him for a Saturday, Sunday start, get 5 starts out of that spot. Makes for a pretty good streamer coming into next week on that really good Tampa power play. And then the last one, already hinted at it, Mike Riley, 0% owned. I have a feeling that we're going to see him go above 0% next by the time this is released even, or at least by Monday. He's got, he added a power play assist. He's still in this game. His shots are, he gets 2 or so a game, but I assume with the increased ice time that he's probably going to get, we'll see that climb slightly. This makes for his 4th assist. So he has 4 assists in 8 games, which is actually pretty good, especially considering he hasn't gotten the top power play exposure. So he could actually be a legitimately rosterable player in 14 plus team leagues. So he's not somebody that just because he's 0% owned, you should be like, oh, this only matters in those insane leagues where 400 people are drafted. I actually think we could wind up seeing him be semi-viable in slightly less deep leagues.
Yeah, I agree.
Or slightly shallower leagues is the easy way to say that. But that wraps up for the short-term targets that I've got.
It's a sneaky play. And there you go. That is week 3. We're getting into the thick of the season now. We're starting to figure out who players are. We're starting to figure out who teams are, and everything is starting to kind of fall into place. And so Unsustainable Wednesday, I think this is going to be the first real Unsustainable Wednesday where we're going to be able to have enough data to really kind of make assumptions and to learn a little bit about players. Whereas before it's kind of been guesswork. Right now we're starting to figure out, okay, they actually fit into the plans. Like Hoffman, for example, we didn't know, is he going to actually fit into the plan? What's not? Now I think it's pretty safe to say he doesn't fit into the plan, and some other players are going to be similar. And so pay attention to the YouTube community tab or to our Twitter. We'll put out there who you want to hear about on Unsustainable Wednesdays, and we'll try to catch all the people that you all mentioned. So anyways, there you go. That is your week 3 preview. Thank you for watching or listening. We'll catch you next time.
Yep. Thanks for listening.